to have two people from Assist Inc., Roger Borganicht, who is the director, and Melissa Hoffman, who is the Access Design Coordinator, will be presenting for the next hour. And at this time, I will turn the time over to them.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you all and go through what is a photographic PowerPoint about what we call a practical approach to accessibility modifications for homes. And I'm going to do a short intro and then turn it over to Melissa Hoffman to do modifications and show you the range of modifications that we usually come up with. And then I'll finish up talking about our program to have builders build basic access features into new homes. So let me start. And by any time there is a question, do it while we're talking. That would be just great. I'm going to start with, let me just start with what Assist is. We're a nonprofit community design center founded back in 1969 by the Architecture School at the University of Utah and the American Institute of Architects. We're one of the oldest in the country, and this being 2009, we're celebrating our 40th year next month. Typically, we do about 25 design projects each month, referred to us by the independent living centers around the state of Utah, hospital release staff, home health agencies, occupational therapists, the Veterans Administration, Workers' Comp, and others. In Salt Lake County itself, we often have funds for low-income households to make some of those modifications. So let me start with the basic building blocks. We always say that we design our options based on the needs and desires of the particular client in their home. We're well aware of the access codes, but our starting point is really their needs and desires, because practical in our mind also means affordable. So we're trying to find the most useful and safe way to make homes good and sound for people with infirmities or disabilities. This is our office. We're in downtown Salt Lake. We run a number of programs. This is a description of our Accessibility Design Assistance Program, the Practical Home Modifications Plan Review for New Housing, consultation on community buildings, and trainings and presentations such as we're doing today. The other side of the flyer is in Spanish. This is the Emergency Home Repair Program, which, as I mentioned, just operates in Salt Lake County. Again, Spanish on the back side. And these are the site visits we do. We go out with interns from the architecture school at the University of Utah or Salt Lake Community College and do a as-built drawing and try to come up with solutions that will meet their needs. These are a couple of shots of our office. Melissa, who's on the phone probably 7 out of 8 hours a day, and one of our interns where we'll review drawings to be mailed out to the client that we visited. And this would just be a simple, typical retrofit of a 5x8 bathroom with an out-swinging door, with taking out a tub and putting in a shower, for example. Here's a simple drawing for a ramp onto a front driveway. And these are the building blocks that I think everyone should really be aware of if they're working to provide modification advice for people with disabilities. As probably most of you know, the standard code and safety require a foot of ramp for each inch of rise. So if you're up 24 inches to your front door sill, to your door threshold, you'll need 24 feet of ramp plus landing. There are situations where the rise is only 3 inches, where someone can manage a slightly steeper. And ideally, if you can do a 1 in 20 slope pathway, code doesn't require railings and it's better for everybody, because there are some people that can't even do the 1 in 12. But that's an important, probably the most important ratio to remember. It also relates to thresholds. For accessibility, a 1/4 inch maximum vertical or a 1/2 inch with a beveled slope. Doorways require a 32-inch clear opening, and a regularly hinged door would have to be 34 to 36 inches wide to get that 32-inch clear opening. But more on that later that Melissa will show you. These are just maneuvering spaces at doors so that you are out of the way as you swing the door open. These next two slides are really the most important dimensions, other than the ramp, that I think people need to know. Most people in a wheelchair occupy a space, a clear floor space of 30 by 48 inches. And a usable standard requires that that clear floor space be by each fixture, each bathroom fixture, each kitchen fixture. A greater level of accessibility, you're probably familiar with as well, is the 60-inch diameter circle. That is called the wheelchair turning space. The clear floor space, sometimes people have to go in and back out because they might not be able to turn around. The 60-inch diameter allows you to make the full turnaround. Grab bar reinforcement, we're encouraging builders to put this in every home. A line of 2x10s reinforcing the wall around tubs and behind toilets. And while you're at it, bring it further so the towel bars can actually be built as grab bars. You can add grab bars that serve as towel bars along the long wall of the bathroom. Counters would typically be lower for someone in a wheelchair, and the knee space would provide 27 to 29 inches for most people in wheelchairs. Again, it has to be tailored to the particular people, and sometimes they're in a taller chair or there's a joystick that has to be accommodated. So just going to the code is not good enough. And lastly, for the building blocks, I add this no-step entry framing. For those of you who know construction, this is probably the most important detail to create basic access in homes. And we have more detail on this, but in talking to builders, it's a very critical piece. And just to reiterate once again, the usable standard 30 by 48 clear floor space provides use or transfer of all fixtures, appliances, and counter, and the 60-inch diameter wheelchair turning space creates even more maneuverability. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to start with the most basic access, which is entry into the home.
The reason we start with basic access is that's usually the hardest problem to solve. After that come bathrooms, and we look at interior passageways through the home, and finally get into kitchens. So those are the four areas I'll be covering. So we're going to start with ramps, because that's usually the first thing people think of about how to get someone in a chair into the house. And we bring up this picture showing how not to do it. And you can see on the left, we call that our scary ramp picture. The person who used that, which was built by well-meaning neighbors or friends, just wanted to make a slant to get her down, and she unfortunately fell off and got injured. So when we were called in, you can see from the other picture, the ramp is at least twice as long and wraps around to the front of the house. So we just put this in to show how not to do it. And one of the other things we did a few years ago, people will tell us, oh, I can manage what we call a 1 in 8 slope, which is 8 inches per foot, depending on the rise. And we said, well, that may be a little steep for a manual chair. The rule is 1 in 12. So we went out to the Delta Center on the north side, And because of the slope of the different pieces of concrete and the joints, we were able to measure what the slope was at any particular part, and we charted the whole thing. So if anyone wanted to go out and see how they would do, we can give them a map on where it is. This is 1 in 12. That's me in the chair. And I managed to do 1 in 12, but that was all I could do. And if Ken Reed is watching, we've got a couple of great pictures of him. Here he is going up at 1 in 10 and 1 in 8. And notice he's traversing. He's not going straight up a 1 in 8 slope. So when we get to we need a ramp, what people say, the first thing is to figure out where it's going to be. Where is there enough room? How long the ramp has to be? And this just gives you, first we take a look at if it's going to be in the front door, what some of the considerations are, and I won't read all these. Just keep in mind setbacks, hose bibs, sprinkler systems, and we sometimes forget about the sprinkler systems. So these are all things to be taken into account when you're thinking about how you're going to lay the ramp out. Then once we get that done, then we look at what the rise is. And frequently people will just measure it from the bottom of the step to the top of the porch. And that shows you there exactly how much that is. But there's another step that gets forgotten. It's the step at the front door. So you add those two up and that will at least give you a ballpark figure of how much you need. But then you also have to consider the slope on the front porch, because typically it's built to slope down to let water off. So now we think it's going to be about 26 feet, and we think we've measured everything we need to. Still another step. Here is your 26-foot ramp. Now you really, in measuring a ramp, you really need to find out where the ramp is going to end, because that's really your starting point. You need to determine what the total drop is from the threshold to where the ramp is going to end. And we do that with a transit. You can do it with a string level, and you measure at the end of the line where the ramp starts. In this case, it's actually going to be a little different than our 26-foot estimate, because we've got a 2-inch slope going down. And so your 4 inches, your 26-foot ramp in reality needs to be 30 feet long. Just an example of a site plan. Some building departments require that when you go for a permit to build a ramp. And some examples of configurations. The most common one that we use is the switchback, just to be able to accommodate the length that we need. And it sounds like a lot of detail in laying out a ramp, but if you get the ramp too short, it's a little hard to go back and figure out how to make it long enough. And now we get to some of our pictures, just to show you some of the things that have been done. The ramp to deck is just integrated with the deck itself and just looks like another way in. The short ramp on the right with just curbs and no railings was modified for the individual so he could get out of his van. And we always say that we want to plan and design to the needs and desires of the individual. We obviously have code to meet, but it also has a lot to do with individual needs. And just some more examples of ramps. Front door, in the driveway, wrap around, and the 30-foot ramp is a typical picture I show a lot of people just so they can get an idea of what 30 feet of ramp looks like. Most people unfortunately underestimate how big that's going to be. And the picture on the left is one of the really important things we do to prevent having to put a gate or some other way to keep someone from falling off the edge. We literally bring the step out another 12 inches. You can see in both pictures, so it just provides that extra measure of safety, and you don't have to have a gate or other way to stop a chair. Mobile homes, they're typically quite a challenge. The one on the left, the smaller one, was very easy. It was a no step at the door and only 2 risers up to the mobile home, and it just very nicely fit back in there. That doesn't happen too often. Most of them look like the one on the right. And some examples of where we use the composite decking, sometimes known as Trex, which requires no maintenance, and because there's spacing between the boards, it allows for water runoff and should last indefinitely. Curved ramp, concrete up at the top, because it is a ramp up at that point. There are railings, and it's just one example of how it could be done to get into a home. Modular ramps, we typically don't do those, partly because of the cost, and sometimes it's easier to integrate a ramp on a wood deck than it would be a modular ramp. This example, the individuals in the home came up with their own solution for getting someone in a chair in the house. From the front, it looks like doesn't look any different than any other one's house, but if you notice on the side, you can unload someone from the car and it's ramped up to the front door. They just took part of the porch to build a ramp. And here we have some wedge ramps to help people get over the thresholds. Fairly simple. And another item we've been working on, particularly when we get a chance to talk to builders, is see if we can't build garages even 4 feet wider or 4 feet longer. Your typical garage is about 20 by 20, and people ask for a ramp in the garage to keep it out of weather. They're going to lose a car space if they do that. There's just no way to fit a ramp and 2 cars in a standard garage. These we are showing at 24 feet, and you can see that it provides opportunity to put a ramp in and still get the 2 cars in just by adding a few more feet. If a ramp is not needed, and sometimes it's not, I will have a lot of people call me and say, can you come out and help me do a ramp? I need a ramp to get out. And I ask, are you in a chair full time? Do you walk at all? Well, I use my walker and I use my cane, but I can't do my steps. This is the alternative to doing a ramp. And for someone walking or using a walker, as I'm sure many of you know, a ramp may not be the best solution because it will cant someone forward when they're going down. So we go out and we talk about low-rise steps, and when we mean low-rise steps, they're 4 inches high. And the treads can be anywhere from 12 to 24 inches. The woman with the walker on my right, those treads are 24 inches wide. They're basically little platforms, and she goes down each step using her walker. And you can see the difference in length compared to her old concrete steps on the right of that picture. And this is certainly much cheaper and easier to build than a ramp, and it really does solve the problem. We need to find out what the person actually needs and what will make it safe for them. If neither one of those solutions work, and it's up too high, and typically once we get up to a 36-inch rise or higher, the cost of a ramp starts equaling the cost of a porch lift, depending on the circumstances. And these are just a couple of examples. In split-entry homes, the porch lift is the only option that we've been able to come up with. Typically, it's put on the back deck, and it will get someone to the main level of the floor. Main level of the home, excuse me. Here we have a lift in front, a lift tucked into a porch so they can drive right up, get out, and get into the lift. And once we figured out what the best solution for the individual is to get into the home, then we go inside and see how they're getting around the house. The 30-inch wide door is, she has to have her arms inside the door. The 36-inch wide door shows how much easier it is for someone maneuvering a chair to get in and out. And another option, oftentimes we will go out and people say, I have to rip out all my doors because they aren't wide enough, and reframe them all. There are things called swing clear hinges, where you can put it on the door. It sets the end of the door back even with the frame, as you can see in the before and after picture. And if you do that and cut the door stops at, say, 36 inches for a chair, you've gained at least 2 inches wider. And in some cases, if people are going straight in, that's really all they need. And it's just a question of changing out hinges, not tearing out the whole door. Now, it doesn't always work, particularly with 28-inch doors, but sometimes other doors it can. And you could do an out-swinging door on a bathroom. That's one option, and that's for someone in a chair to be able to get in and close the door behind them. Your typical 5'8" bathroom doesn't allow for that. They can get in, but they can't close the door. The other slide is a picture of a pocket door, which is sometimes an option. And here we're a great advocate of making hallways at least 6 inches wider. So you have a 42-inch hallway. Not only is it easier to maneuver through, it's easier to get furniture through, and it looks a lot more gracious than your typical 3-foot hallway that sometimes resembles a bowling alley. Chamfered corners are also a great idea for maneuvering. And keep flooring at the same level so nobody trips over anything. The picture of the stairs may be a little harder to see, but what was done here is the alternated colors of the carpeting. For people who may have vision difficulties, they can tell where the riser is and where the tread is. And I have seen it where they've used dark on the tread and a much lighter color on the riser, and it does make it easier to see. One option for getting up and down the stairs, of course, is stair glides, and we are seeing more and more of those in people's homes. If someone has the ability to transfer from a chair at the bottom to the stair glide, get up at the top and get off onto another chair, this is really could be a very good solution. And they make them, as you can see, they make them in all sorts of configurations now. And the stair glide chairs have gotten a lot smaller. There's one, I think, when it's folded is no wider than 14 inches. So your typical 3-foot wide staircase could easily accommodate one of these. Incline platform lift. We sometimes get asked about this for someone who can't transfer and they want to be able to get their chair up and down the stairs, and they ask about this. This isn't something we've really done much with, partly because of the cost, partly because your typical residential home does not have the space at the bottom and top of the landing. It takes at least 5 foot by 5 feet, top and bottom. And it's also fairly expensive and takes a wider staircase to get this in. Just examples of some indoor lifts. And track systems. The one on the left, the header was just cut through so the track system could move the person from the bedroom through the hall directly into the bathroom. The one on the right, they actually made an opening and framed it in. That's the one on my right is a fairly elaborate track system. It goes about 3 different directions once it gets in the bathroom. And again, here they cut out the entire top of the door to put the curved track in. And going into bathrooms, which usually are our second biggest issue about getting in the bathroom. And we start with the standard 5x8, which is what most homes have in the hallway. Master baths these days tend to be a lot bigger, but usually we're looking at the hall bath, which is 5x8. Doesn't give a lot of room to be able to do anything. So the first thing we suggest to people is, can you use a transfer bench and be able to sit down and either swing your legs over or have someone help you get in, and you can use a handheld shower so you're not really climbing in and out of the bottom of the tub. If that's not an option, and this we've started doing recently and it has been extremely well received, is doing a tub cut, where a portion of the tub is taken out It's sealed up. You can no longer use it as a bathtub, obviously, this way, but it provides a walk-in shower at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. And I understand the manufacturer who's doing this now has an insert that they guarantee for life that you can put back in. It will seal it up, and you can use it as a tub again. So, like I said, this is probably a fourth of the cost of tearing out a tub and putting in a curb shower. And this can be done usually in about half a day. If that's not an option, we go to number 3, which is actually take out the tub, put a curb shower in. And you can see the different kinds of grab bars. There's a diagonal one to help someone sitting so they can use it going down and going up again, handheld shower. This one has a number of grab bars. I think we've got vertical ones on each side here. And when you go do grab bars, what we do is have the person, if possible, go in the bathroom. They show us where they touch the wall, and that's where we put the mark. I've had people say, well, what is normal height for grab bars? If you're in your own bathroom, it's wherever you need them. So we try and get them to figure out what would work for them. We put them up at 5 feet high. We put them at 2 feet low. I think the 5-foot one, the guy did exercises in the shower and he wanted it up high. So that's what he needed and wanted, so that's where it went. Now we get to someone who transferability is permanently in a chair and really does need a true roll-in shower. And this is just one example. What's difficult, as many of you may know, about doing a roll-in shower in a retrofit is getting the drain down low enough. Your typical bathtub drain is going to be above the floor. We usually need to get down a couple inches below the floor so the water will slope down the drain and not back up into the hallway or bedroom. So it can be done in some cases. Certainly takes a little bit of more work. And then once we've got that done, we use can we go back? Where's the back? There's a later picture showing how we use a marble transition threshold just to act as a small lip to keep the water in the shower and yet provide easy access into the shower itself. And this is the one I really like. I just think this would be a great idea if we could convince people this would not take much effort to do. Here's your standard 5x8, 30-inch wide, 2'6" door. You can see the person can get in, but they really can't go very far or do much else. By increasing the bathroom 18 inches, you can now have a 3-foot wide door on there, and the person using the 30x48 space can get in and shut the door. It just provides a more spacious bathroom for a lot of people. Mothers bathing 2 or 3 kids at a time. It's just have room for a laundry hamper in there. So there's all sorts of reasons. Obviously, most important is so someone can get in and have some privacy.
Melissa?
Yes.
I just would like to remind those of you who have logged on recently to feel free to ask a question at any time by going up to the left-hand corner of your screen and clicking on the link UATP Ask a Question link.
We
Thanks.
welcome questions. This one example is where we had a 5x8 bath. The house had what we called pre-engineered joists, so we couldn't cut those to lower the drain. That wasn't an option. So we came up with this idea. This is the bedroom of the person with the disability. And the hall bath is the only bath on that floor. It's used by other family members. So we did do a curb shower in there, your standard curb shower. But the way we achieved a roll-in shower for the individual was to take part of the closet and build a 2-foot ramp to do the 2 inches that we needed. And here it shows from the bedroom, it does have a door on. There's the door open. And you can see the ramp, marble threshold at the shower, and there you can see it from the bathroom side. So it acts as a regular curb shower for the rest of the family, but for the person with the disability it becomes a standard shower. And the really good news about this, as the mother pointed out, she now has a parking garage for this chair. When she's not using it, it sits there in the ramp behind the door. So she just thought that was a great idea we came up with, but we didn't know we had done that. But
Melissa, there's a
yes.
question. The question is, so what is the added cost, if any, of doing all of this?
By all of this, do you mean a roll-in shower, modifying the bathroom? I guess it depends on the extent. If they're asking about a roll-in shower, typically that's probably $6,000 to $8,000. And that's only doing the shower. That's not doing anything else to the rest of the bathroom.
Okay.
Does that answer their question?
If it doesn't, let us know.
Here's just some examples of transfer benches in a bathtub. And I do like to point out on the picture where it has the movable transfer bench, oftentimes people will say they want a fixed seat in their shower. And the builder or contractor will go ahead and put a fixed seat on the back wall. Well, oftentimes it doesn't work. They get in there and they say they're too far away from the handheld, and it's cold back there. So you can see they put their fixed seat folded up against the wall, and got in a movable shower bench. So if it's a very small shower and they put a seat, that may work, but usually people like to have a bench they can move where they need it. So it's just something to think about when you're designing a shower. And more examples of transfer benches. And here we have curb showers showing grab bars and the handhelds. One of the things we do with the handhelds, at one time we did this, you've seen the handhelds on the slide bars, but we eliminated that and we typically just put in a high hook and a low hook. One of the things one of our plumbers had warned us about is too often that slide bar was being used as a grab bar, and it's not designed for that. So they felt it would be safer to do this and a little less equipment in the shower itself. More handheld showers. And some examples of flooring. We try and be really careful about the surface of the flooring. This one has a pebbly surface that's fairly tight, so you hopefully will not get a lot of soap scum in there. Some people ask about bigger tile or rough tile. We just say be careful, because soap scum can build up and you want to make sure that and then it will become too slick. So it's just something to be aware of. We typically, as the other picture shows, like the 2x2 swimming pool tile, literally used around swimming pools because it has a nice rough surface on. So if kids are running around a pool, they're less likely to slip. So we figured this was a safe choice for a shower. Just more examples of the 2x2 tile in showers and showing the slope marble threshold. And some examples of roll under sinks. The one with the cabinets was done as a modification. And oftentimes people will do that. They'll take out the toe kick and the doors, the middle brace, insulate the pipes underneath, and then it can be under sink. The other one, people ask about wall hung sinks, which too often don't work because people may lean on them. It's hard to brace them on. Or they'll ask about pedestal sinks. Pedestal sinks have gotten a little bit better about the pedestals, but oftentimes a person's feet will end up against bumping the pedestal and they can't get close enough to the sink. So what we found works best is to build a counter and put a drop-in sink in. And because we're in a corner there, we can brace it on one wall and then do a diagonal brace on the other end. the advantage of this over a pedestal sink, it will also give someone some counter space. And some more examples of retrofits. The woman on the right is not under a roll-under sink, but she needed an extra water supply for sanitation reasons in the bathroom. She just hooked it up to the back of the toilet, and she can get in there in her chair and do whatever needs to get done. It was very handy for her. So people can come up with some really good ideas. They know what works best for them. And if you talk to them and get some ideas from them, then you may be able to help them find the best solution. More examples of grab bars. There is what we call our swing away or trumpet bar. I'm still not sure that's the right name. That's what we call it. Just so if someone needs it from the side or wants to get off toward the side, they've got something to hold on to. And briefly, I'll go through some of the kitchen features just to give everyone an idea of things that can be done. And while I'm here on this flooring, if anyone, whether they're able-bodied or not, if you remodel, finish the floor under your sinks. Because if you ever want to change your sink out, even someday if you want to put a pedestal in for you, you don't have to change the flooring. And if you decide you want to do a roll-under sink, the flooring is already there. It costs a few dollars more at installation time, but it will make it easier farther down the road if there are changes coming. And side hinged oven doors, and I understand there's an American manufacturer coming out with this again. Frigidaire had one for a while, but I think they discontinued it. Cabinets with deep drawers. We're a great fan of breadboards. And here we have kitchens that were designed by the individuals themselves. On the roll-under sink one, you can see the individual can get to the sink and the cooktop. There's plenty of space to maneuver around there. Picture at the right shows 2 microwaves, one at chair height and one above the stove. There's also a work area off to the far right that's lower so someone could work in the kitchen. And here we have breadboards underneath the side hinged oven door, so if someone in a chair is lifting something out of the oven, they have a place to put it. But quite frankly, I think that could be good for a lot of people to have a place to set a 22-pound turkey from Thanksgiving before you have to move it again. The drawers on the right were designed by the woman using the kitchen, and she needed an easy place to unload her dishwasher.
Melissa, there's another question.
Yes.
Where could someone get an oven that opens to the side?
I would tell them to get, if they want to call me, remember the name, but there is I think it's Frigidaire, maybe coming out with a new, you want to get on the internet and put side hinged ovens, you will get some. There'll be, I think there's a couple of the European ones tend to be more, but they either get on the internet and are side hinged, or if you want to give me a call, I can track that down for them. Here is another standard sink, and this is why, and unfortunately for every, as we all know, would be usually good for. And deep drawers. It's easier to get pots and pans and dishes out of drawers than having slide shelves with drawers. That's much harder to manage than do this. But I have noticed a lot of cabinet manufacturers are coming out with these deep drawers now. Again, people customize what they need. And in this case, it was a 9-inch toe kick, so she had plenty of room for her feet. and shallow sink with the drain toward the back, smooth cooktop to slide off pans. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Okay. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our work trying to encourage builders to build new homes with basic access features. And this is a graphic that shows the basics of what you do. The most important, of course, is a no-step entry somewhere into the home, adequate doorways, switches and outlets at a reachable level, bathrooms again with a 30 by 48 clear floor space, kitchens with the same, ground floor bedrooms for aging in place, as well as people with infirmities or disabilities, and ideally a 60-inch diameter wheelchair turning space in all rooms. These are just a couple of the homes we have worked with. This is a bermed slope pathway up to the front door for the young son who uses the wheelchair. The slope pathway, the house on the left, has a basement, and it's easily transitioned from the driveway to the front door. On the right is a house we retrofitted. The porch used to be down 6 inches from the front door threshold, and we just raised the walk up and made sure that the earth got burned up, so if someone wasn't a good driver in a chair, they wouldn't go off the edge. That's an important detail to remember. Here are a couple of garages that don't even require ramps. You can see on the right, the floor of the garage slopes out by code to the garage door so that gases or liquids flow out of the house, not stay in or move in. And both of these have no step entries from the garage, which obviously is very desirable in our winter climate. Adequate doorways here just shows the adequacy and ease and independence that a 36-inch doorway provides, and a large enough bathroom that you can go in and close the door. Switches and outlets and controls within a reachable height. That's 15 inches from the floor or no more than 48 inches from the floor for the thermostats and switches. Again, the same chamfered corners and hallways and accessible closets you can see there with a lower shelf and a 36-inch door. Elevators again, here's one in a garage that went down to the basement, up to the main floor, and up to a floor above. These are obviously more expensive installations, even in a new house. And what we would call our ideal bathroom has all of these features with a roll-in shower, turnaround space, lever handles and graspable controls, a toilet in a 5 by 5 corner that you can see here that allows you to orient the toilet, the commode, one direction or the other. Some people might be able to transfer to the right, some could transfer to the left, and that allows you that option if you start from the beginning. And sometimes you'll need a therapeutic tub, and there's maneuvering space at the doorways. These are just photographs of some of the new homes. Sometimes it's adequate enough to have the transfer bench, as Melissa talked about, or there's an example of a toilet in a 5 by 5 corner. That toilet could be turned 90 degrees and someone could approach with a left transfer rather than backing in and doing a right transfer. Here's a bathroom. We've developed these photographs for builders to try to market these features to new home buyers, whether they're able-bodied or have disabilities. Just showing a roll-under sink with an insulated panel in front of the pipes, easy for the plumbers to get down on the floor and work below it. Sometimes that panel could be made removable with just 4 grabber screws. An attractive feature for kids or for someone using a wheelchair. Lower freezer drawer in a refrigerator freezer. And here's a raised dishwasher, which is also a better height for people in chairs or for people standing up and having a bad back.
Roger,
Yes.
there's a question. What's the difference in cost of making the bathroom accessible from the start instead of spending $6,000 to $8,000 to remodel?
Right. It's very minimal. If you builders in Georgia that are building the Easy Living certificate home have accessible bathrooms, and they figure building a home with basic access, a no-step entry, adequate doorways, and a usable ground floor bathroom is about $500 difference. If you do a no-step entry, of course you're not building stairs and railings. What Melissa showed, a 5 by 8 bathroom going to 5 by 9.5, that's an extra 1.5 feet in length by 5 feet. Some builders would want to say, well, that's going to cost more by that square footage, but often it's shaving a closet here or shaving a bedroom there, and there really is very little additional cost if it's done when you're planning the house. You're always trading off hallways, closets, bedroom sizes, bookcases, things like that.
The other piece of that, if someone does need a roll-in shower, when the house is framed up, they can make a shallow recess for a roll-in shower.
Good point. If when you're framing, you frame out the shower area, for example, with 2 by 8s, rather than framing out the regular bathroom with 2 by 10s, you've guaranteed yourself a 2-inch lower drain just by using 2 by 8. So if it's caught early, that ought to cost very little, in $100, $200, to spend the extra time to put in 2 by 8s, which are cheaper than 2 by 10s. So maybe it's a zero cost. I think a lot of it really depends on their intention and paying attention to the details. This is a piece we did in conjunction with the woman who coined the phrase visitability. A wonderful woman who lives in Atlanta, and we presented this flyer to every builder, architect, mayor, planning commission in the state about 5 years ago to say if we could just add the essential visitability features, a no-step entry somewhere into the home, adequate doorways, a usable ground floor bathroom, we'd have 90% of our problems done, because 90% of the problems that we're presented with are how do I get in, how do I get through the passage doorways, and how do I function safely in the bathroom. And we also point out, and I think this is a big marketing technique that we have yet to master, is that it's good for everybody. It's good for parents with baby buggies, it's good for seniors using a walker or a cane, it's good for moving furniture, and of course it's good to have family visit to your home independently without, I remember as a child having to be home when one of my parents' good friends who had polio, my brother and I would have to stay home for the beginning of the party, which was always fun, to help carry her into the home. But if we have a no-step entry somewhere into the home, people can do it independently and with dignity. And of course, the middle picture at the bottom, the fellow who's in a wheelchair, his home is accessible because he lives there. But the fact that his friend's home is visitable means he can join the party. And that's a big deal. So we have shown the no-step entry either through the front door or just grading it. There's a slab, house built on slab, which is very easy to do, or again, that no-step from the garage. And Habitat for Humanity has embraced this concept of visitability that I mentioned before, is called the Easy Living Home. That allows people with disabilities, allows aging in place, a lot of different ways that people have described that. the clear passage space we talked again, the 32-inch clear and low thresholds. And there's a quote from Eleanor Smith, my friend in Atlanta, who said that she wanted to focus on the few barriers that create the most harm. That is the lack of zero-step entrances, narrow interior doorways, and the lack of access to a usable bathroom. Again, the 5 by 9.5 bathroom providing that kind of access. And then this is our latest piece of work. And this is really, I would like feedback on it from anyone that has ideas and has relationship with builders. We've put together a prioritized list of access features. It's kind of the ABCs of access. You'll recognize the 3 essential visitability features at the top. This might be a checklist that a builder would give to a buyer and say, yes, I do want a no-step entry somewhere to the home. It'd be great from the garage, carrying in groceries. Yes, I want adequate doorways, or no, I don't want adequate doorways. And then the easy living conveniences are easy to do. Lever handles instead of round handles, the grab bar reinforcements, reachable switches, these are all easy to do. And then the third category, the C categories, are where you get into the adaptations and upgrades. The wider hallways, the grab bars actually installed. Some of these photos are fuzzy and be reworked, but this is the piece that we're trying to get to builders to offer these features as an option to all their buyers. Stair glides, no-step outdoor living, things like that. We will probably have this in production on our website in the next few months, but we're really trying to work with marketers so this will be an option that builders would hopefully offer to all their potential buyers, young, old, or what have you. It's always fun to look at mistakes. I think I know I learn a lot from my mistakes and from others. As unbelievable as it is, this was 16 units of accessible housing built in Salt Lake County. I won't name names or name places, but these are all accessible units for people with disabilities, and I don't know if they didn't talk to the engineer, but they put the posts right at the place where people would need to circulate. You can see that curved angle between the walkways, which is the right thing to do for people in chairs, but of course there are columns in the way. This was following a guidebook, but introducing tripping hazards where it really was not necessary. And this was the most unbelievable at all. We saw a pocket door, but the requirements had for a long grab bar, and they blocked that door. Fortunately, off to the right, there was a door to the bedroom, but this is kind of the unthinking accessibility design that kind of drives us crazy.
The shower that sprayed into the bathroom.
Oh, and the shower that sprays out against the shower curtain. There doesn't even seem to be a shower curtain there. So these were mistakes we laughed and cried about. And once again, just to reiterate that when a neighbor says, oh, we can just go from the porch to the driveway, often that is more dangerous than not doing anything at all. And our last slide before our information is that we're trying to get builders to eliminate 28-inch wide bathroom doors, because as you've probably seen, the difference between being able to get through or not is at least a 30-inch door. If you have a 30-inch door and you put swing clear hinges, you can go through if you ride knuckles in. So here's our information. Myself and Melissa, our phone number, our website is assistutah.org. We have copies of the Assist Guidebook to the Accessible Home. We're happy to send out complimentary copies to anyone that could use them. We have multiple copies of the Visitability flyer, and always like feedback on whatever we've done.
And just to add on to the book, we send out the book, of course, at no cost. And if you missed anything today, everything we know is in this book. That's what we tell people. So all you have to do is look at the book, and you just call us, and we're happy to send you out a copy.
With one exception, which is the tub cut that we discovered last year. Everything we know and what we've talked about today is in the guidebook except for this tub cut idea, which has really turned out to be, it's about a $1,200–1,400 fix versus a $4,000 to $5,000 fix, and has really worked well for people. There's a company in Murray, Utah that we've developed a contracting relationship with, and people have been very happy with that.
Thank you, Melissa and Roger. That was wonderful. And as we are wrapping up, or as I'm wrapping up, if there are any final questions, please type those in. And there's just a few business items I want to finish up with. Just a reminder to please fill out an evaluation form, and if there's more than one person using a computer, please each person fill out an evaluation form by clicking on the upper left-hand corner link that says UATP evaluation form. And as I mentioned before the training started, the way that UATP is doing evaluation forms for these online trainings has changed, and we now do it all electronically. It's all online, so hopefully that will make it easier for you, and should just take a few minutes for you to fill out the evaluation form. And then also, just to give you a heads up, our next online training will be December 2nd. That's Wednesday, December 2nd, from 3 to 4:30. And Kent Remond from the Utah Center for Assistive Technology will be presenting electronic aids for daily living. And it looks like we have one more question. Okay. It says, I've read the ideas for home improvement brochure and like it. So actually, more of a comment.
Thank you.
So again, we'd like to thank Roger and Melissa for coming today and sharing their knowledge with us, and thank you for participating.
We were happy to be here.
We're very happy to participate with all of you here and on the web.